On today's episode of the SPEMA Council podcast, we had on Michael Lenart, a registered physiotherapist, the lead physiotherapist for the Canadian men's national para ice hockey team, formerly known as sledge hockey, and a board member on the medical advisory department for Para Golf Canada. This was a really, really interesting conversation, and I don't say that lightly because not because he brought such a unique perspective that we really haven't seen before in the SPEMA Council podcast. We haven't really looked into the parasport sphere, and he brought a wide variety of insight as to what that's like from his work on the sledge hockey / para hockey slide, how he got into that and what his role looks like now. You'll hear about his experience in last winter's World Championship up in Ostrava, Czech Republic, and his work as the board member for Para Golf Canada and making the game accessible to all involved. He's got a great philosophy on mindset, a great growth mindset philosophy that is awesome. And he also shares a bunch of tips on a safe return to sport for anyone that's doing intramurals or getting back onto the playing field for the first time in a while. And again, a huge shout out to our guest co-host Anaiah Pitt, who you will be hearing from in a few seconds as we preview this show for you. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is the SPEMA Council podcast. How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I invite you to pull up a chair, sit back, and relax, and welcome you to another episode of the SPEMA Council podcast. Yes, I finally nailed the ping pong smash.
Yes, it was amazing.
Because last episode was an epic failure. Probably if I sent it to the Sports Center, not top 10, it would be at least in the top in the top 3 of shameful athletic moments from average Joe university athletes. Thankfully, this episode is not the case.
It's okay. You redeemed yourself.
Thank God. Before we get to introducing our guest for this episode, I'd like to welcome our guest co-host. She's been on the podcast, but she's been on the podcast before as a guest on a roundtable we had this year, but has come back again to co-host. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anaiah Pitt to the show. How's it going?
Hello. I'm doing pretty well. Glad to be here.
For sure. How's the year been? How's the year been going for you? Any classes on campus?
Yeah, I've actually got most of my classes on campus, and I really, really like it. It is definitely a step up from last year.
Yeah, I can't imagine going through an online year in first year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had an 8 a.m. lecture, but the first day of classes was an 8 a.m. and people are notorious for like not going to it because it's early, but I look around and it's a full house. Mm-hmm. And that just blew my mind. Just absolutely blew my mind with I guess how desperate people were to get back to some in-person stuff regardless of the time. Like my preference is like I do not care what time it is. If it's in person, I am making double time. I'm making double time to campus because I don't want to miss any of that stuff.
Yeah. My first class actually was 8 a.m. on Monday, and that was like, okay, I really have to, kind of gauge when I have to leave my house because I wasn't used to it, right? I was kind of late. Everyone was looking at me, but that's okay. Now I'm kind of in the hang of it. But yeah, I really like the in-person classes. I really like the program stuff I'm learning. I'm pretty excited for the rest of the year.
Good stuff. going on to the guest we had on, we had on Michael Lenart, a practicing physiotherapist and the lead physiotherapist for Canada's para ice hockey team, formerly known as sledge hockey. A lot of really interesting points, because I don't think we've had anyone who has had the role like he has. So this was an interesting episode to learn about a sphere that personally I didn't really know much about, and there was a lot of interesting things on how his experience with the World Championships came about, especially in the bubble environment.
Yeah, for sure. It's super interesting what he does. It's a nice kind of change of scenery. I'm used to a lot of the sports business side, but learning about, the physiotherapy aspect of being behind a team and traveling with them and helping them out, it was really interesting to learn about, and especially the Paralympic sports. I love hearing about them because it's super amazing what those athletes can do, and it's great, the entire organization behind them.
Yeah, doesn't get enough exposure for
sure
for how talented these athletes are. They can be impaired from the chest down, impaired from the waist down. You get them onto a playing field, and it does not matter, because if you've ever seen a sledge hockey game before, and the way that they shoot, it's mind blowing. Their arms are a couple inches off the ice when they shoot, and it's a simple flick of the wrist and top corner. I imagine trying that, and I'd probably get 10 centimeters, if I'm being generous, off the ice. So just incredible athletes that he works with and tends to on a daily basis, because as we're going to see in the show, it is not for the faint of heart, especially with how the equipment is designed, particularly the sticks that they use to play. He also gave great pointers on a successful return to sport for students, as intramurals are starting up at the time of this recording. I don't like to predate recordings, but I have my first extreme intramurals game coming up in a couple days, and another tennis match as well, and looking to do better than the 6-2 thrashing I got last week. So it's a lot of great pointers for those doing intramurals this year,
Yeah, for sure. For everyone getting back into sport after not doing it for so long, it's definitely important to take care of your body and make sure you're doing it safely.
100%. Okay, well, I think this is enough of a preview for now. But before we go into the full interview with Mike and I, is there anything that you'd like to add before we send it over to Mike's interview?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting episode. I learned so much, and I'm first of all super grateful to be on this podcast. It was lots of fun, and yeah, super excited to get into it.
Awesome. All right. Without further ado, here he is, Michael Lenart, the head physiotherapist for Team Canada's para ice hockey team. Enjoy, everyone. All right, for this episode of the SPIMA Council podcast, we have a very unique guest, and a field that we haven't really touched on in our 3 seasons here at the SPIMA Council podcast. A graduate of the Western University Kinesiology program, along with attaining his master's at the University of Toronto in physical therapy. He's been a physiotherapist since 2014, and in early 2021, he got appointed to Team Canada as their lead physiotherapist, starting with the World Championships in early 2021 in Ostrava, Czech Republic. He's currently slated to be the lead physio for the upcoming 2022 Beijing Winter Paralympics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael Lenart to the show. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on, man.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and Anaiah. Really like what you guys are doing, adding value to the space, and happy to be a part of it.
Thanks, Mike. All right, let's get to the first word, the de facto first word of the SPIMA Council podcast. Mike, what mindset have you adopted to forge a successful career?
Well, I think the biggest influence in my life when it comes to mindset is the concept of having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I don't know if you guys come across this in reading or in the podcast previously, but I think the more you can have a fixed or a growth mindset when it comes to your experience and your interactions on a day-to-day, I think the more you have an opportunity to take control of the experiences and situations that come about. And I would say that's the biggest thing for me in my life, is trying to have that sort of mindset and continuing to use the opportunity and the people in my life or podcasts, for example, much like you're doing here, to learn more about maybe gaps in my education or gaps in my area of expertise that either I knew I had, or sometimes in learning more, you don't really realize it's a gap until you start to learn from an expert. So I would say that's the biggest thing in my life that's shaped me and helped me overcome both challenges and failures too, right? We all want to be successful, but oftentimes with success comes failure. And I would argue that you really don't become successful unless you've had failure in your life. And it's how you kind of respond to that failure that really, I think, shapes who you are. So that would be my biggest influence.
And all of that is a great tidbit, especially with growth mindset. You know, especially in these times when almost everything seems to be uncertain in a way, there's really no room for standing around. We're in a fast-paced world. The sport industry is definitely no exception to that. And I guess to rise above the top, you have to keep adapting, keep moving forward, keep evolving with whatever comes your way. And you know, it doesn't really matter what you're encountering, or what the concept is. When you get down to it, it's just all about adaptation, willing to learn, and willing to at least push yourself to get you into a great position. So I like how you conceptualized that growth mindset theory for you.
Yeah, it's something that it takes practice, like anything, right? Like a muscle, your brain is a muscle, and it's something that unless we put the work into training the mind and training, putting ourselves in these types of situations, it's not something that just comes about, right? There's lots of opportunity for resources out there, whether they're audio or books that we can all consume. It's something information is definitely out there. It's just you got to be willing to look for it, for sure.
100%.
Awesome. All right. So, Michael, you went to Western for your undergraduate and U of T for your master's. So, and you specialize in physical therapy. So what kind of drove you to pursue this route, specifically in sport physiotherapy?
Yeah, well, I think if you ask my friends, I'm probably inherently a competitive person. Whatever that comes across as, whether it's playing cards or sports. It's always been, I think, a natural gravitation towards me being in the sporting world. But I'm also kind of a team first guy. So I really think that, team sport especially, and whether you're working with individual athletes at a high level, you really start to kind of gain the realization that even individual sport, there's a team of people around these athletes, right? So I think that combination of being inherently competitive, but also kind of being team first or team oriented, naturally kind of helped me gravitate towards sport physiotherapy. And then more recently in my career, my gravitation towards parasport stemmed from an experienced placement of mine at Lyndhurst Rehab Center in Toronto. So when we're at U of T, there's different placements that you'll go on throughout your physiotherapy education. And one of my favorite placements was Lyndhurst. I thought I had a kind of in my mindset anyways, I thought, okay, I'm going to be an orthopedic practitioner. I'm going to gravitate towards sport. But then I was kind of torn when it came to choosing my first job out of school. And the main reason was because I enjoyed that placement at Lyndhurst so much. And for those that don't know, Lyndhurst is one of our main rehab centers when it comes to rehabbing spinal cord injuries. And
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to work alongside some really great practitioners and mentors there. And so now more recently, Parasport has just been a beautiful blending of the two. And I would say that's kind of the biggest kind of culmination of events that led me to where I am now.
Nice. Before I get into one of the points that you said there, you mentioned you had passion for card games. What's your go-to?
Well, more recently, with the para hockey team, it's been cribbage. So we've been playing lots of crib, but whether it's poker or euchre, always down for a euchre tournament. We also travel with Monopoly Deal with the team, so if we can get a few games of Monopoly Deal going, then that's always a team favorite as well.
No, Monopoly's gotta be the game where at some point there's gonna be at least 2 or 3 that are absolutely heated because they rolled, went to jail, had to pay the income tax. Jeez.
There's no way you can go through a game of Monopoly without yelling at someone.
It's a good test of friendships and relationships, that game.
You're going through the game all of a sudden. Did you shortchange me $40? You're costing me the game. On a more serious note, though, that's truly a unique route, and that spinal cord injury rehab center that seems to be quite the special place. And I haven't been in one, thankfully, because I know how debilitating spinal cord injuries can be. But when you're in there, it must have been so invigorating to see. See the progress that those people have made. Because they come in, maybe they're in various levels of paralysis, most being told that they're probably not going to walk again. But one of the examples that I can think of with the spinal cord injury, and how people committed to the health of that person can level them extraordinary heights is Ryan Strzelnicki of the Humboldt Broncos. If you're familiar with his story, he had a real bad spinal cord injury from that bus crash. Told that he's probably never going to walk again, but got placed in this center, and outlet, and his progress is all over social media, and 2 years later he's at a point where he can actually take, while heavily assisted, a few steps. So it must have been quite the situation to see, I guess, the progress of some people in that center.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like COVID. It's something that doesn't discriminate, right? So it doesn't matter your race, your gender, your age, your wealth status, or your socioeconomic status. Anyone can have an injury, right, or a trauma that will lead you to a place like Lyndhurst. And you learn quickly when you're there that it's no kind of two spinal cord injuries are alike. Whether it's from the stages of acceptance that each individual goes through in their own time, or whether it's their level of impairment, right? So it's truly an amazing place. And I'm fortunate enough, my wife is a physiotherapist as well, and she works in the outpatient kind of spinal cord and neurological setting as well. So it's a big part of our life, and it's very rewarding, challenging for sure. But it's very rewarding. We're lucky as healthcare providers, and if you're looking to pursue a career in healthcare, it can be a really rewarding job. It's very challenging at times, for sure, and I'm fortunate throughout this pandemic not to have been working in a hospital, because I can't imagine the added stress and strain that would have on our frontline workers and healthcare workers. But yeah, it can be a very challenging career as well. So it's definitely a passion for both my wife and I.
Yeah, and it's through the enthusiasm in your voice when talking about this, it seems evident that you've achieved a sustained level of passion for the work that you do for a long period of time. And again, shout out to every single healthcare worker that's sacrificed literally everything over these past year and 3 quarters to keep us safe. They have our undying gratitude, for sure. Moving on to the next question here. Has to do with your recent appointment to Team Canada's sledge hockey team with the IPC, with the Para Hockey World Championships in Ostrava that were in early 2021. What attracted you to the world of sledge hockey in the first place, and how did that role come to be?
Yeah, well, I've always been heavily involved in hockey and the hockey community, and really enjoy it, both from personal experience, but also working on kind of more local teams in and around kind of York region and Richmond Hill. And then, like most things when it comes to high performance, you get your foot in the door from a connection. So I was fortunate enough to have my previous employer set the connection and provide me with the opportunity to first work with the para hockey team. And kind of the rest is history from there. You get introduced to the group and the guys, and you fall in love with the guys, the work, the staff, and you quickly kind of figure out that this is where you want to be, right? And I think it's something in my life that, although you put a lot of time and effort into it, it's definitely extremely rewarding, and I feel super fortunate to be a part of all the events that I have thus far, and look forward to trying to get the job done in Beijing come the Paralympics soon. So
that's the goal. That's the goal. That's the goal, eh? That's the goal, always.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're super fortunate to be a part of the Hockey Canada community and the organization, and the goal is 3 golds, right? Men's, women's, Paralympic. We're going as one team, and that's the goal, triple gold for us. So we're going to try to do our part and make that happen.
Awesome. Love that. It's super inspiring. So during your time at the World Championships, kind of take us through what a typical game day would look like, such as duties you have to accomplish, or even some events that you had to react super quickly to. Kind of take us through how you dealt with those and what you kind of do on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to be a part of 2 World Championship teams. Both were actually in Ostrava, Czech Republic. This most recent one was during the pandemic, right? So it looked a lot different than the one in, I guess, 2019 or 2020. So the big thing for us is making sure that we're doing our part in staying healthy, right, and staying safe. So usually in the mornings, it would start with a COVID test. So we'd go down and they'd have nursing stations set up at the hotel. The hotel was in a bubble format, so we weren't able to either leave the hotel or the rink. So we'd have kind of designated event staff to transport us, to run and get whatever supplies we may need or equipment that we may need. But it would start with a COVID test in the morning, and then we typically have breakfast. And then soon thereafter, we'd go to a pregame skate at the rink. Once we get to the rink, we have equipment managers that go to the rink 6 a.m. If you've ever been part of a hockey team, the young sun heroes of the world are the equipment guys. They're there, first ones there in the morning, last ones that leave. And so they're there doing their thing even prior to us getting there. And then typically we would take the group, myself, I would take them through an active warm up. So the guys would check their equipment and we go through an active warm up, make sure that they're ready, whether that's foam rolling or mobility prep, some band work, those types of things. And then we'd monitor. So as a healthcare provider, we're always overseeing on ice activity just to make sure that in the case of emergency, that we're there and we have kind of our emergency access plan ready to go. Heaven forbid something happens. And then after practice, we would we take them through a cool down, go through the nutrition, high performance habits, get our protein shakes in, get our recovery methods going. And then we'd head back to the hotel. We might do a post-meal snack or post-meal game. And then typically the players have a little bit of time where they can, take a nap or get rested before we go through pretty much that same process prior to the game. So then we'd, work our way up, pre-game meal, travel. We'd go through the same warm-ups that we do, a lot of habits, right? And then the coaches would do their kind of on ice coaches chat pre-game kind of coaches chat. And then once we get onto the ice, it's showtime. All eyes are on the players, and we're just there to make sure that if we're needed or called upon, then we're ready to go. So a lot of our work from a medical team happens beforehand, and then we're there just really in case of emergencies.
Were there any emergencies that you had that you sort of had to react to, or was this a relatively quote unquote easy tournament where you didn't really have any major injuries? Because sledge hockey is a lot more violent than people realize. Not only do the sleds have super sharp blades, but correct me if I'm wrong, but they've got these picks at the end at the top of their sticks that players use, and there's a risk that the players can get nicked up accidentally from those.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that haven't had a chance to watch it yet, it's truly an amazing sport to watch. It's high flying, lots of contact, everything that hockey brings, it has. And there's kind of a component of medieval jousting as well out there, right? These guys are on sleds that are made of steel or aluminum, and it's pretty amazing to watch. But unfortunately, it comes with a high degree of of contact and sometimes injury as well. So we, unfortunately, at Worlds, we had a few fractures that we had to deal with. So, part of our management as a medical staff is then, to that individual player, preparing them for transport, managing shock, making sure that we're doing what we need to do to create a long-term management plan for those athletes to get them ready for that next event, whenever that may be. So yeah, lacerations, like you mentioned as well. So for those that don't know, it's like you're holding basically 2 mini sticks, and on the end, there's kind of razor blades and picks right on the end to allow them to skate, right? So those can absolutely, go to vulnerable areas. And when guys are scratching and clawing for pucks, loose pucks, or in the corners, they definitely become a risk. And yeah, we always travel with Hockey Canada with doctors, team doctors as well. And it's definitely not uncommon to have lacerations be an injury that we have to manage. So lots of excitement from a medical standpoint. And you kind of always have to be on your toes preparing for that worst situation. It's one of those things where if you prepare for the worst, it usually never happens. But it's one of those things where when you're not prepared, that's when something's going to happen. So we always make sure that we're doing our part from medical staff and coordinating with host medical to make sure that the appropriate steps are in place to, heaven forbid, something does happen, that we can quickly and swiftly manage it.
And for the viewers at home that are still not convinced that sledge hockey is on the rough side, do me a favor, watch some highlights of a sledge hockey game.
Absolutely.
You will be shocked. You will be shocked about the level of physicality that goes into it, especially the battles in the corners, and the skill to even do that is unbelievable. And to this day, it's still beyond me why when we go to the Olympics, there's all this coverage around the main sports on multiple networks, but when we get to the Paralympics, you look at the actual coverage and it's usually limited to one network and a couple streaming sites, which I hope changes, because there's a lot of people that probably haven't been exposed to the sports that are in for a huge eye opener once they watch that first game. But going on to another para sport that you're involved in, you've also been appointed to the Medical Advisory Board of Para Golf Canada. Within those responsibilities, what general goals are you trying to achieve within the sport, such as increased accessibility or a higher degree of safety, or any goals other than that?
Yeah, well, I really have to tip the cap to Todd Kierstead at Para Golf Canada. He's done a great job at creating this initiative and increasing visibility to the sport. And that's where we're at right now in year one. We're really just trying to increase the visibility, increase participation. Paragolfcanada.com provides an opportunity to join a membership. It's something that allows us to create and shape some events around as well. So we get an understanding demographically at where our athletes or where our participants are, then that allows us to shape where we can host these types of events, right? And so that would be my first advocation, is just if you're interested, paragolfcanada.com, register as a membership or use it as a platform to learn more about. They're also on Instagram, Paragolf Canada. And yeah, we're really trying to push, right? It's a sport that, unfortunately, maybe unlike basketball or soccer, I think the sport of golf is inherently exclusive just because of financial reasons alone. Like, it's one thing over the pandemic, I think it's one of those few sports that you could do because of social distancing or physical distancing. But that's come at a cost as well. That's, to get out there, you're probably 75, $100 around. And if you want to be a competitive athlete, you got to be out there on a regular basis. And so we're really relying on some corporations and strategic partnerships to try to make it more accessible for individuals. And then secondary to that, disability. These courses are hard to access, right? You got bunkers, you got greens, you got hills, you got rivers, the creeks. Like, you can find yourself, especially if you're golfing like me or like my friends, you're all over the course, right? So it's one of those things that there's a lot of barriers. It's not going to be easy, but it's also provides us with a great opportunity to smash through some of these barriers and try to grow the game. So yeah, I'm just really excited to be a part of it. And there's really going to be some exciting things coming down the road down in year 2. This year was really all about trying to gain and increase the visibility of the sport.
Yeah, and if anything, what that organization is also doing is just providing another outlet for the physically impaired to be a part of, and remove the stereotype that, well, since you've had this major injury, you can't participate. Your sporting career is essentially down the drain, which is the furthest thing. It's the furthest thing from the truth. And with COVID, even though even though golf courses by nature are fairly rugged in terms of terrain, we've seen a boost in golf course usage, because it's safer. So as long as you keep pushing forward with this, and people are gonna be attracted to it, because with no disrespect to to para hockey, but some people may not be ready to go in an indoor setting for sport yet, based on their own risk tolerance. And golf can be there as an outlet to get outside and enjoy sport in a safe and distant manner.
For sure. I think sport has tremendous power, especially when it comes to rehabilitation. And I know that'll be a focus with some of the new hospitals, such as West Park, in trying to create a framework of rehab that's centered around sport, or at least has sport as a adjunct to therapy. And you just think of all the benefits that sport can teach you, and life lessons, whether it's teamwork or learning how to lose or win graciously. It's one of those things that I think becomes even more so important when you have an injury or a disability that may leave you feeling maybe withdrawn or excluded from your previously normal day-to-day, right, or previously normal activities. So yeah, I would strongly encourage, if anyone wants to learn more about Parasport Ontario also has some great resources for those. And if you're not sure, just you give it a try. I would encourage you guys, try something new, try something that you never know, you might find a passion for it. Or worst case, if it's not a passion, then you're going to try something that is a new experience for you, and it might open your eyes or give you a little bit different of a perspective on sport or the para population in general.
Awesome. So moving on to our next and final question. So intramurals are actually just getting underway for students at Brock. However, due to the pandemic, some may be taking the field of play for the first time in over a year. And I really like this question because I can actually relate to it. So I'm excited to hear your answer. But with this in mind, do you have any pointers for students to have a successful and safe return to sport, without physically burning out too quickly?
Yeah, I love that question. That's something that clinically, in my job as a physio, I see this all the time. a transition of seasons, transitioning into a new sport. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do. I just got back to my flag football league in Newmarket, played 2 back-to-back games last Sunday, and man, did I feel it on Monday. That was I felt it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Yep, me too. I know what that's like.
Yep.
So, there's definitely things we can do to help put ourselves in a position, to reduce injury or participate without fear of something happening. And I think from a MSK standpoint, our muscles and tendons hate large fluctuations in load, right? So if we go from being inherently sedentary throughout this pandemic, maybe going on the occasional run or jog, to then going onto a field and working, in different planes of movement, rotating, twisting, lateral, cutting, all those things, that's going to be a shock to the system, and you're definitely going to feel it the next day. So, if you have a few weeks time to prep yourself before the season start, try to work some of that more functional or sport specific training into your daily workouts. That would be kind of number one. And then I think number two, what I see with a lot of our youth athletes or teenage or university athletes is, sleep is at a premium. There's so much pressure when it comes to social engagement or partying or studying or, cramming for a test. It's something that sleep still has to be a strong consideration when it comes to making sure that we're putting ourselves into good position to succeed when it comes to sport. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the important hydration tips and nutrition tips. One of the things we're very fortunate to work with at Hockey Canada is a performance dietitian, Kellyanne. She is phenomenal, and she really helps promote those high performance habits when it comes to a hydration and nutrition standpoint. So bring fluids, right? Pre-practice, pre-game, intramural event. Make sure you're doing a good job hydrating, especially if you've had a night the day before, and protein shake or recovery shake for when you're done. Those are, I think, equally as important as kind of the physical aspects, if not more.
Great tips. Great tips. I'll be sure to keep those in mind because the hope is that my father's beer league team will be starting up. So I'm banking on getting a warm up game in sometime around reading break, and let's just say we'll see how the first shifts go, because geez, that's probably going to be my first actual hockey game, actual 5-on-5 game since, man, I want to say late February, early March of 2020, which seems unfathomable, but for the one thing that's going to be guaranteed for everybody is how excited everyone's going to be back. The old saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Well, a huge part of everyone's lives for sport people has probably been missing for a long time. So just being able to get back on the field of play is going to be huge. But as we draw this show to a close, and once again, Mike, thank you so much for coming on to the show, for sharing a very unique and enlightening perspective on not only what you do, but really what's behind the world of para sport, which is something that we need to pay more attention to, because there is a whole host of incredible athletes that, despite whatever challenge that they face in their daily lives, they simply are able to put it aside and deliver in feats that sometimes we can't even comprehend. especially sledge hockey, still can't figure out how those athletes are able to get leverage on a puck. Sounds like the hardest thing in the world. They do it like it's just a normal day at the office. But it is tradition here at the SPIMA Council podcast to give the guest the final word for every show. So so whether it's anything you want to end off with, or what's going on with your physio career or Team Canada now, feel free to shoot the breeze on that. Mike, thank you again, and the floor is yours.
Hey, my pleasure. I'll just start off by saying, Will and Anaiah, really thank you so much for adding value to the space. And I think these are great opportunities to shed some light on things that we didn't know about. But in trying to impart some final wisdom, I'd just pass on kind of what I know my mom mentioned to me in high school and university. It always kind of rang true, was just surround yourself with like-minded and good people, right? I think that's the number one thing. You got to choose your friends wisely, especially when it comes to first year university. There's going to be a lot of distraction, and there's going to be a lot of people that want to have fun, and some people are going to go a little bit too far in the fun side of things. But I think you're at a stage where if you really do work to surround yourself with good people, and I was fortunate enough with the people that I lived with and my friends in university, that yes, we like to have fun in the social side of things, but we also had drive, and we also had very kind of genuine and like-minded moral compass that helped us when it came time to do the things that needed to get done from a school standpoint. We got it done, right? And we encouraged each other to do so. So I would say that would be the big thing. And then, put yourself in a position where you can fail. I think you can't be afraid to fail. And I don't know who said it, but one of the things that kind of has been a little bit of a buzzword or a buzz phrase is fall forward, right? So whenever you fail, just learn from that experience and try to take whatever that failure was as an opportunity to learn something about yourself. Or maybe if you didn't respond the best you could have in that failure, then, retroactively think, okay, well, why didn't I? Or what did I do? Or what could I have done different in response to that? And, life is super short. And sometimes we think we have 80, 90 years to live out this amazing life. And the reality is sometimes we don't. And I think we got to enjoy the process and enjoy the opportunities that are in front of us and try to take advantage of them.
Mike, once again, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks again.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks, guys. Best of luck in the semester.